all not here, or I'm not connected. Anyway, good to know I'm connected. Basically, it's this, that we're told on Friday, only Friday, I'm afraid, that the joint briefing today by National Treasury on the public procurement has been postponed. We gather, it seems, it's from National Treasury side. They asked for an extension of time. So we had to very quickly reach out to somebody we'd planned to call anyway. And it came to be that Mr. Musa Mabesa kindly agreed that with such little notice, they will appear before our committee today, because we hate, obviously, losing slots. And again, it's beyond our control, frankly. In fact, every incident, you can check with the secretary, has been beyond our control. We had nothing to do with that. So we are where we are. We want to thank Mr. Mabesa and the team that's here from the GEPF at such short notice. Thank you indeed. You didn't have to agree. There was no pressure on you. We said, if you say no, we will live with that. We'll look for another option. But we were planning to call the GEPF anyway, as we are indeed planning to call the PIC. We meant to do this in the next quarter or later this month. Because as you know, colleagues, again and again, we're finding the bills are not coming through from the NL, and the initial program they gave us, they're unable to deliver on. So the program we set based on their program about when bills will come to us falls away. So again, if you have any issues, don't raise it with me. There's nothing I can do. I've raised it with the House Chair twice at least. They went to speak to the House Chair on that side. And so you can complain to your whips if you like, but there I am. Beyond ability to do much about this. In fact, it's immensely frustrating for the secretary and myself. But here again, we have cooperation from the GEPF. Now, Mr. Mabesa explained that, sorry, hello? Somebody's intervening?
No, Chair, you can go ahead.
Oh, right. Mr. Mabesa was kind enough, being on leave, to say, okay, he'll pull it together. He may or may not connect with us. And I said to him, that it would be nice if he could, because it's a virtual meeting, but if he can't, of course we'll understand. All right, so now we have a big team from the GEPF, I see here. But before we get to that, can you please, in Kuleleko, apart from Dikeledi Mashlangu, who said that she's not well, and I know she's not well, she didn't just say it. I'm not sure whether she connected with us. I don't see her here. No, she's not. So her excuse, her apology is entirely legitimate, and she gave it to me. Any other apologies in Kuleleko?
Yes, Chair. Good morning, Chair, and good morning to members. We have an apology from Mr. Ryder, Ms. Nwita, and Ms. Mamarekhane, who is going to leave us shortly.
She's going to leave us. Oh, she's here, I see. Hi,
Yeah,
Lillian. I like calling you. All right. Okay, teasing you. Right, fine. That is your name, after all, and part of your name. So I see we got the former DG of Treasury, and Mr. Dondo Mokayane. Ah, okay, welcome to, I don't know the others who are here, but the team, I'm not sure who's leading the team. Is it Dondo? In which case, can you let us know who's here? And, yes. And can we move on from there? Can we allocate 45 minutes to you or thereabouts? Thank you. Oh, no, please, before we go on, can I just raise something? I mentioned to members that when I spoke to Mr. Mabesa, he indicated that because they don't fall under the PFMA, they don't normally do quarterly reports for public consumption. Now, that surprised me, but if that's what the PFMA says, so be it, right? So what we agreed on is the nearest thing to a report would be what they'd already done, because you can't on a Friday ring an entity, which normally gets noticed at the beginning of a quarter at least, when they're going to appear. You can't tell an entity, no, you want a report done within 2 working days. That's out. So I said to him, what have you got that you've already done that's in the public domain that we could review? And we will stick to the 2021-2022 annual report. What we will do, though, at the end, I would want to highlight some issues which I think we'll leave for them to think about. And in the early August period, especially if the bills don't come back to us, we will then call them in again and deal with those issues. But we also write to them to that effect. But for now, can members please stick to the terms of reference, which is the 2021-22 report, because it's the last report they published. Okay, over to you, Dondo, and your team.
Thank you very much, Chair.
There's an echo. Is that just me?
I think, Chair, it's because Mr. Dondo is appearing on 2 devices. Maybe exit one device, Mr. Dondo, and use one.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, now it's clear, Dodo.
Oh, good. No, thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. Sorry we could not be with you physically. I'm also.
No, we weren't requiring that. We weren't requiring that. Thank you. No,
yes.
It's virtual meetings, committee meetings. You know what's happened to Parliament. So the
Yes,
sittings
yes.
and then no, you're not doing anything errant here. Thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. Yes. No, I'm with the colleagues from the GEPF. I'm with the Deputy Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Fund, Mr. Eddie Kekana. I'm with Ntwaring Marotodi, who's the Chair of the Finance Committee. And I'm with officials in GPF, Brian. He's Bulelwa first is in the Finance Department. Brian is in Benefits, Sfiso in Investments, Poshia in Corporate Services, HR. And there's also Babs, Naidu, Adri, Emmanuel, and I hope Musa. Sorry, Musa has got, he's apologized. He cannot make it as the chair indicated. And thank you very much. We are going to present briefly the annual report, and we note that we've got a few minutes, Chair, as you indicated. We'll try and stick to that. I will just make some opening remarks, Chair, and give over to the team, who will then take us through in terms of what the issues are. You will note that, Chair, it applies to the term of the previous board, whose term ended on the 4th of July 2022. So when this work was done, the current board was not there. But however, Chair, we take full responsibility in terms of what is in there. As you know, I would have signed the annual report that came through to that's all in the public domain that we're going to discuss today. In the GPF, Chair and honorable members continues to move forward with hope and determination towards ensuring that we grow the fund entrusted to us, as well as fulfilling the mandate of the GPF, which we want to believe and we want to understand as solely and ensuring that membership value is maintained. And we obviously operate this, and the PIC has got a mandate to execute this on our behalf and ensuring that we grow the fund to the best of our abilities. And it is important to also know that the fund operated in the 21-22 financial year under very difficult economic circumstances environment. But however, the fund was able to actually move forward, and our fund was able to perform to levels that are satisfactory. Firstly, I must, Chair, upfront note that the fund achieved a 9.6% year-on-year growth, and we'll get the details later, closing with a market value of about 2.3 trillion rand, and this was almost 201 billion from the previous year. And it tells you that despite tough economic environment that we had to operate in, the fund's investment strategies continue to assist in growing the fund. The second important point that I think we want to outline, and we'll get into a little bit of detail, is that it shows a recovery in our unlisted and our property portfolio in the way that we have performed. And in an effort, Chair, to strengthen and enhance our investment processes, including oversight on the PIC, the GPF implemented a few recommendations made by the Judicial Service of Inquiry into allegations of impropriety at the PIC. And this ensured that we, as the fund, our investment policy was reviewed and strengthened. Secondly, in ensuring that the fund grows, the GPF evaluated the fund's investment strategy, and we did an asset liability modeling exercise, which was conducted and resulted in a revised strategic allocation, which is currently being implemented. And again, the colleagues are here to explain that in detail. We've also reached an agreement, Chair, with the PIC on benchmark returns, which has resulted in a revised mandate being signed for the listed and unlisted portfolios. And 4, we have enhanced monitoring and our evaluation of on investments that we make. And we have reviewed our internal investment monitoring structure, and the board has approved a reviewed structure and capacity in terms of playing our oversight role. The fund has also strengthened its management agreements, resulting in robust guidelines and portfolio construction in the investment implementation process of its fund. And despite all of this, Chair, we were able to ensure that we do play our mandate in the best possible way. And in moving forward, Chair, I must emphasize that we are committed as a new board to take over from where the old board has ended in growing the fund, as well as ensuring that the fund becomes more efficient and effective in benefit administration and in terms of its investment strategies. In this regard, Chair, finally, we will improve our oversight and relationship over the service providers, in particular the GPA, which is effectively administration agency of the fund, and also our the PIC, which is implementing the investment mandate that we have. But thank you very much, Chair. I will then pass over to the team to take us through some details of the report, and then after the Chair, with your permission, we'll obviously take over the questions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. You're not stuck with 45 minutes. I mean, it's like a suggestion, because we feel that members begin to fade after like that period. So it's an extra 10 minutes if you need it. You know, I'm sure that's fine. Also, I must apologize that several members who should be not, some are sick, and you know, I also need to alert you, and you know this very well, Dondo, that you know, it's election year now, and so members are often hauled into the provinces and so on to campaign. So we're going to have this difficulty in all committees. It's already happening. We've discussed it within the majority party, how to find the right balance, and we're seeking to do that. So it's not as if, you know, either we're going to rush you and then the number of questions put to you are limited, right? So just see, if you need an extra 10 or even 15 minutes, I'm sure that's fine. Okay, so let's not be hard and fast about it. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, over to your team. Thank you very much.
Hello, is the team?
Hello, Yahoo, next.
Sfiso, are you guys there?
Yes, we are. We are here.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Hello, Braeri, Mr. Kekana. I'm sorry, Chair. The team seems to be.
Yeah. Okay, we can wait.
Hello?
Yes, we
Hello,
can hear
Dondo?
you. Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Just leave it.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable members of the NCOP. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Bulelwa, and I am the head of finance for the GEPF. I'll be taking yourselves through the presentation. I'll be assisted by my colleagues from the company secretariat on the governance slides, and then also from the investment and benefits side. And when all of those areas come through, I'll just be handing over to them. Thank you for the opportunity to present this to you. Just as a start, in terms of who GEPF is, we are the largest pension fund that's been established by the Government Employees Pension Law. It was established in 1996. We've got about over 1.2 million members, and we've got just shy of 500,000 pensioners and beneficiaries. As mentioned earlier by the GEPF chair, the assets under management for the years up to 2021 to 2023 was at 2.3 trillion. What the objective of the GEPF is really to provide pensions and other related benefits according to the GP law to the members, to pensioners, and to beneficiaries. We also manage and administer pensions and related benefits on behalf of government employees in South Africa. We receive contributions which we invest, and we pay monthly pensions, monthly child pensions, as well as spouse pensions. We also pay funeral and resignation benefits to our members. I'm now going to be handing over to Audrey van Niekerk, who is our company secretary. She will be taking you through our governance process.
Thank you, Bulawa, and good morning to the Honourable Chair and Honourable members of the committee. So I will quickly be dealing with the governance structure of the GEPF. The GEPF is managed by a board of trustees, who is the executive authority of the fund. The GEPF doesn't currently fall under the Pensions Fund Act, but has its own enabling legislation called the GP Law and Rules. And the way that the Board of Trustees is set up is very much aligned to the requirements of the Pensions Fund Act. So currently there's 16 trustees that serve on the Board of Trustees. 8 gets appointed by the members and 8 gets appointed by the employer, which that principle is aligned with the Pensions Fund Act. Honourable members and Honourable Chair, the Board of Trustees has constituted board committees that is aligned to the business of the fund, and that's also aligned to the strategic objectives of the fund. Currently, there is 6 permanent committees of the board. They are the Benefits and Administration Committee. We've got a Finance and Audit Committee that's also responsible to oversee and manage risk within the GEPF, Governance and Legal Committee, an Investment Committee, a Remuneration Committee, and then the board has also at its last meeting in March agreed to establish what we call an advisory board. This advisory board will be responsible to provide oversight over the unlisted investments managed specifically by the Public Investment Corporation. We also then have 2 subcommittees that reports into 2 committees of the board. We've established a valuation subcommittee that reports into our Finance and Audit Committee, and then also Social and Ethics subcommittee that reports into the Governance and Legal Committee. The Board of Trustees meets on a quarterly basis to deal with the business of the GEPF. We also have an annual strategic planning session, and then we have various trustee training events that's compulsory for board members to attend, and that also take place on a quarterly basis. The Board of Trustees has aligned its governance practices with the requirements of the GP Law and Rules. And then we also look at Key 4, PF 130, as well as the Companies Act and other governance codes to align its governance practices. Honourable members and Honourable Chair, as previously stated, the Board of Trustees is currently the executive authority of the fund. There is equal representation on the board between members and the employee. With regard to the membership of the board, the employer appoints 8 representatives. The Minister of Finance is responsible for these appointments, and he does the appointments in consultation with other ministers as per the requirements of the GP Law and Rules. The GP Law and Rules prescribes that the minister must appoint at least 1 specialist that's got specialist knowledge in either pension administration, actuarial matters, financial matters, or investment matters. And the Minister of Finance has, since the inception of the board in 2005, always appointed 2 independent specialists to serve on the GEPF board. Then from the employer or member representation, 6 of these representatives are appointed by the PECBC. The pensioners elect 1 pensioner representative, and then the forces also elects a representative. For each of the 16 trustees, a substitute trustee is also appointed, and then the board has the authority to appoint additional specialists to serve on the committee structures to augment any skills that is required on specific committees. Currently, we've got 3 independent specialists serving on our remuneration committee and 2 independent specialists serving on the finance and audit committee. It's also envisaged that the board will appoint an additional 2 specialists to serve on the advisory board. The GP law requires that the board must manage the fund in terms of the powers and duties conferred upon it as per the GP law and rules, and that the board must ensure the effective and efficient administration of the fund and is accountable for the investment performance. I'm going to hand over to Bulalwa now.
Thank you, Audrey. So taking on from what Audrey was saying with regards to the Board of Trustees being the executive authority and how it discharges its obligations according to GP law, the PIC, which is the Public Investment Corporation, has been appointed as the investment arm to make sure that all the investments that are done for the fund are managed accordingly. And then we also have the Government Pensions Administration Agency, the GEPF, which is our funds benefit administrator. Though these 2 entities are both falling under the PFMA, as mentioned earlier, the GPF does not fall under PFMA, nor does it fall under the Pension Funds Act, but rather follows the GP law. Both of these organizations are managed through separate agreements. The PIC is managed in terms of an investment agreement and mandate. This was indicated earlier by the chair of the board of GEPF, and there have been some changes and updates that have been done on that to ensure tighter management and oversight on those investments. And then the GEPF is a funds benefit administrator that is managed through a service level agreement. And even on that side as well, there have been some enhancements to the service level agreement to assist in improved oversight over the work that is done by the administrator. The GP law requires that there be other service providers that assist the board in ensuring that they administer their requirements accordingly. One of those stated there is the external auditors. The GPF is subject to an annual audit, and the Board of Trustees is required to appoint an auditor on an annual basis to ensure that the fund is audited accordingly and the financial statements are reflected accordingly. We've also got an actuarial valuator who looks at the valuation of the fund to ensure that we adhere to Rule 7.2 of the funds to make sure that we have sufficient funds to administer the liabilities. And then we also employ legal representatives that will assist us if there are issues that come up, whether they come through from the asset manager or from the administrator. We have a panel of suppliers that assist us in that regard. We also have a panel of unlisted investment valuators. We require this as we have a substantial unlisted investment portfolio. And because of its complexity, we do require independent investment valuators to ensure that the investments are reported in the most correct way. As Audrey had indicated earlier, these unlisted investments, the valuation subcommittee is actually tasked with ensuring that the unlisted investments are reflected in their most correct value. And these unlisted investment valuers report their findings and investment values to the valuation subcommittee, which in turn submits those to the Finance and Audit Committee in preparation for financial year end reporting. Just as an overall context to the financial year-end results, the chair of the GPF had initially indicated that these are the contexts that we operated under. There was significant global economic recovery, though there were still disruptions because of coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. There was a very high annual growth rate in more than a decade for South Africa that is largely driven by the recovery of from COVID-19. It must just be noted that our financial year end is 31 March, and as such, that first year of COVID hit us really hard because there was that significant drop in market values, and because our year end is March, that decrease in market value then showed significantly on our financial statements. And then coming then through to the year of 2021 and 22 in terms of the recovery, that's how we found that we have quite a significant growth rate because of also come a year later, then we have recovered from that pandemic. There has been a highly correlated domestic equity market, and then the resilient local bond market, which I'm sure Sfiso can provide more information on when he comes into the investments part of the presentation. And then, as we're all aware, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which is still ongoing and is still having quite significant effects on the investments. And then lastly, we had quite significant global energy supply concerns, and which are quite significant in South Africa with the power issues that we are experiencing. On a high level, we've paid 136 billion benefits for the year 21-2022. As mentioned, the investment portfolio got to 2.3 trillion. We've had 255 billion in net investment income, and that has translated into an increase in investment portfolio of 9.6%, a return on investment of 11.1%, and a growth in reserves over 10 years of 8.6%. The accumulated funds and reserves have reached 2.236 over the period to 2022. I'll then be handing over to Sfiso Square, who will take us through the investment portfolio.
Thank you, Bulelo, and good morning to the chair and to members of the committee. In terms of the investment portfolio, there was an increase of about 201 billion, representing a percentage increase of 9.6% in value. We've shown there the asset values of the fund for the past 10 years, and the closing values at the end of the financial year that's been reported on was 2.1 trillion rand. In terms of the underlying reasons for that increase, as highlighted earlier on, some of the nuances as follows. So there was an improvement in terms of domestic and listed equities. This was also in respect of a recovery from the COVID period, so equities did recover. Similarly, with bills and bonds in the investment portfolio, there was a reduction in terms of yields, which resulted in an increase in bond values. For the period, that was an increase of about 6%. In terms of the unlisted equities, this is a private markets portfolio. There was an increase of about 9%. Included there is the improvement in the property portfolio of the GEPF. And then the remainder there is a collective investment schemes, which is basically pooled investment vehicles that the fund utilizes as well. And that represented an increase of about 6%. Then in terms of the investment returns, for the year ended 2022, the annual return was about 11%. We've listed there the returns over the past 10 years as well. And as we can see, in 2020, there was a substantial and sharp decline in the returns, and that was due to COVID. In 2021, there was a sharp increase in recovery, and the return was about 23.1%. And at the end of the financial year that's reported on, the investment return was 9.1%. I would also add then that the returns for the past 5 years, the average return for the past 5 years is 8.64%. And then also for the past 10 years, ending 2022, the returns were 9.9% as well. And that is the key figure because we are a long-term investor. I'll then be handing over to Brian Karidza, who will then discuss the benefit portion of the annual report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sifeso, and thank you, Chair and members of the committee for providing us this opportunity. I'll be taking you through the benefits section of the GEPF. We'll start off with the discussion on the contributions. So as mentioned earlier in our presentation, the GEPF collects contributions on behalf of members, which are then invested. Our members contributed at a rate of 7.5% of their pensionable salaries, with the employers contributing at 13% for non-services members and 16% for services members. The contribution income increased by roughly 0.5% during the reporting period, from 81.6 billion in 2021 to close to 82 billion in 2022. Moving on to the benefits that were dispersed. So the pension payments increased by roughly 25 billion to 136 billion in 2022, which was an increase from the 111 billion that was experienced in the previous year. In terms of the main benefits that are dispersed by the fund, so when members reach their normal retirement age, they get a gratuity on retirement as well as a regular pension payment. 33,627 cases were processed and finalized for members who were retiring. The total value of gratuities that were paid were 21.4 billion, and the annuities or monthly pensions that were paid amounted to 62.3 billion. In terms of resignation benefits, so this is when a member decides to leave the public service and cashes in on their pension benefit. Roughly 34 billion was paid in resignation benefits to 20,659 beneficiaries during the reporting period. In terms of the death benefits, a total of 14.8 billion death benefits was dispersed during the reporting period, and this was paid to 11,776 beneficiaries. In terms of our funeral cover or funeral benefit that we offer to our members, 37,798 funeral benefit claims were processed and paid during the reporting period, and this amounted to a total of 550 million being dispersed to our beneficiaries. Then in terms of the child pensions, 551 million was paid in child's pensions during the reporting period, and this was paid to 9,824 eligible child beneficiaries. Chair, that concludes my section on benefits. And we hand over to the Vice Chair for the concluding remarks.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Chair and honorable members of the committee. I think, and we are hopeful that the presentations that were actually articulated provided a lot of insight around the GEPF, and they clearly defined who we are in this particular space wherein we are operating, and we hope it will provide more clarity to some questions that you might be having. And from here, we will actually provide you with an opportunity to ask questions in particular areas where you need clarity. Thank you for allowing us to share with you this particular information. yourself and your committee as Parliament. Thank you very much. Chair, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry.
Okay.
I've taken the it's this iPad with me. I had a call of nature, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, it's natural, but I was listening to every word, obviously. Look, very quickly, I want to say that for myself, before I hand over to committee members, that your figures are like overwhelming, you know, for somebody like me. I mean, 2.3 trillion. And looking at the amounts you present, they're like stunning, actually. And it's quite difficult, to be quite fair, to MPs to fully evaluate the GEPF. That's my initial response. But having said that, let's hear from others first, and then I'll come back on a few issues. Very quickly, who's up for a question? Fane, go for it, my friend. In the meanwhile, others will come in.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Simon Baletsane. Hello, Simon. Right, go for it, Fane.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you for the presentation. It's quite insightful. Chair, just one question with regards to all the rumors that's going around. Can we please have an indication as to plans of the GEPF of investing more in government? Since government definitely has a need for more funds to fund this welfare state we might find ourselves, are finding ourselves in. To what extent will the GEPF invest in government, and are there any plans to do any further investments, and what guarantees does the beneficiaries of the GEPF have that funds will not go to waste with regards to reckless investments? Obviously, you'll try not to do it, but we know that there's definite political influence and interference. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, funny, that's a very legitimate question. Whether answer plan, how far. But I think the question does fall within the 21-22 period, because Mr. Dutoit is right. I mean, the issues arose in the year that the annual report covers. So in that sense, it's a legitimate question. So I'll leave it to you. If you feel it doesn't fall within that year that you are reviewing, you can say no, and I will be guided by, what seems to a chair to be correct and rule on it. But it does seem to be a fair question. There's no harm. We would ask you this question anyway when you come back. So I'll leave it to you in that regard. But I think you should try and answer at least. But there it is. The next question comes from Simon Maletsane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me acknowledge the presentation. My clarity question, it's on, it goes like this. For an example, if I'm a member of a GEPF, I'm contributing on monthly basis for years until I reach my retirement age. And when I reach that retirement age, there is a certain lump sum
Recording in progress.
The last question raised by Mr. Simon Maletsane. Whether you, chairperson on the board, have had to deal with this issue of these widows who are very, very angry, very bitter. Part of their problem obviously much of their problem deals with SARS, not with you. But have they reached out to you? They've lobbied everybody that we could think of. They were in Parliament during the review of the fiscal framework, the budget time, and the matter has been referred to SARS to deal with. But they have any within the beneficiaries of the GEPF, the spouses, reached out to you to complain about not getting a fair deal after their partners have passed on. And most of the issues are related to tax, but they've been lobbying them, but I'm just interested if they come to you. The questions that I wanted to ask are not many. As I said, I find it quite overwhelming to assess, but that's just me. Can you tell us a bit more about your investment policy? Secondly, in the year under review, did the previous board, and certainly the officials would have been perhaps mostly the same as them, so they could answer this question if it's unfair to the current new board members. Did you get complaints about your investment policy? Every now and then, I wouldn't say like every week, but say like twice or thrice a year, we get complaints. In fact, if I recall correctly, we got more complaints when I was chairing the Standing Committee on Finance now about the GEPF, because they don't hold the PIC responsible. As far as they're concerned, they deal with the GEPF. The issue that we will raise with you when you come back, as we will with the PIC, is the daybreak matter. It's been in the media for a good while, and there's a cluster of people in Cape Town who have been writing to the chairperson of SCOF and myself, and I have engaged them over the phone, and I've referred them to public media articles that talk about the process, the CEO being suspended, that various corrective measures have been applied by Daybreak, and the PIC has got involved. But obviously, we'll ask the PIC about that. But when you come back, we will also ask you, because if you want to comment now, it's fine, but really you don't have to, because this, I don't know whether it started. Yeah, it probably falls under the 21, 22 year, but if you feel you'd want more time, it's okay, no problem, next time. But they are concerned that you let the PG. Okay, the thing that they say to me, partly in emails, but perhaps more in conversations, because you get clarity more when you speak with people. So I've had about 3 or 4 exchanges with 2. Well, the one is a group of people. There are about 32 names there, I think, I can't recall. And the other one is an individual. And then there are people I bump into. And Chairperson, you'll be surprised who are the sort of people that are complaining. They're not, if you like, okay, let's put it this way. I'll be blunt. Why should I be apologetic? They're progressive people. They were activists in the struggle. They are people who served in the public service. And they were drawn into the public service because of their roles in pre-1994. You would think that they'd be more empathetic when the issues arise that Mr. Fani Dutoit raises. But you'll be surprised if you're not, well, you probably know all of this anyway, Chair, but, it does surprise me. But you see, I don't like arguing because, Chair, when you were in the previous role you played, you would have heard me say this. It is very hypocritical for us to push for the GEPF to invest, say, in Eskom, right? Now, we ourselves are secure. Our pension fund, okay, we'll argue, Chairperson, you'll explain all this better than I about a defined benefit fund and all that, right? But you see, we, with our big mouths, ask, the GEPF, the Public Service Fund, Benefit Fund, to actually invest in Eskom and maybe Transnet and, SAA or whatever. But you know what? We are sitting happily secure that our fund's not involved. We're not using our fund, the MP's fund, to invest in these entities. So my view has been, and I know it won't be popular in my own party, but I'm a chairperson of a committee. And it's my right as a functionary of the institution of parliament, which is meant to hold the executive to oversight as indeed public entities, but is also meant to deal with its own role and our own hypocrisies as MPs. So I really don't fight with anybody, and it's not my job. They raise it with the chair. You know, I say, look, the GEPF is independent, and, you know, we can't instruct them on where to invest, and there are good people there, and, you know, the PIC does well overall, and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't wash, Chairperson, it doesn't wash. And these are people, you know, some of them. One or two of them may even have been in Treasury before, I don't know. So I'm telling you that what worries me is these are progressive, these are people committed to what we call the national democratic struggle and society that we commit ourselves to, in theory at least. So that's what worries me. Then the next question is, yeah, look, I think on spouses, that's an issue that I've raised already. Do you have, yes, I wanted to ask you, and maybe it overlaps with the question Fanny says, do you have like a call center, presumably you do, where people who have got complaints, like, you know, like an ombudsperson, maybe. Okay, that's slightly two different questions. Do you have a call center where any pensioner or beneficiary can ring and complain or raise issues that they're not finding being addressed? One. Two, do you have like an ombudsperson who can scrutinize your decisions that a pensioner or a beneficiary might find as unfair and not consistent with the rules? All right, so let's see if anybody else has questions to ask. Colleagues, this is a very important institution. I mean, it's stunning what they've got. The PIC and GEPF are very, very important institutions. Also, can I get a better sense of how the GEPF, I've raised this question before, you've answered it before, and I've forgotten actually. You know, these things, Chairperson, at my age, you sort of, it gets blurry at 67, right? Well, it even gets blurry for people who are younger than 67. But I can speak only for myself, so I've forgotten how you put it. But can you give us a more comprehensive explanation? Because we've got time. Not that we're going to take up time, colleagues, just because we have to finish in 3 hours. There's no such thing. We'll finish long before that, for what I can tell. As I, in fact, told Mr. Mabesa, I said, I don't think the meeting will last 3 hours. I think it's a 2-hour meeting. Okay, so here we are, Chairperson and your team. What is the exact relationship in GEPF and PIC? Okay, let's take an example. We're using daybreak, but any example where you